Anyway, we have our next guest, and then after that, we will announce the book we're giving away. We'll do the trivia in between our second and third guest. So, our next guest is she writes historical fiction, and as you all know, that's my favorite thing. Uh, almost, if somebody says their book is historical fiction, it's almost a guarantee that I will buy it. Depending, just the way it's described. So, having said that, I did already get my copy of Lost Seeds, the beginning. And there's also a legacy part two, and she's going to do a part three. So, Teresa Sebastian is the author, and welcome to Black Authors Matter TV. Oh, we need to make
Oh,
sure you.
hello. No,
Okay.
I am on here. I'm mute. Listen, I have been on Zoom enough to know you got to get off mute, right?
Okay. Okay.
So here I am. Thank you so much for having me, Gwen.
Oh, well, you're
Thank you for
welcome, and
being here.
congratulations on your project. I haven't had a
Thank
chance to sink my teeth into it yet because my TBR bookcase is not a shelf anymore. It's a case. But it's there for me. I intend to get to it. So, and you just reading your resume um is amazing. You have 4 degrees, is that right?
I I do. Fortunately or unfortunately, I do. I do. No, it's all worked out.
Yeah, you have a bachelor's, an MBA, you have a law degree, and then you have a master's of law, which
Yes.
I didn't know that once you got the law degree, that you needed a master's of law.
Well, you don't need it, but it's like, think about doctors that specialize in certain types of, medicine. Uh,
Okay.
Lawyers can do the same thing. You can be a tax lawyer, you can, be an intellectual property lawyer. I decided to specialize in securities and finance. So
Okay. Oh,
my day job used to be doing mergers and acquisitions and capital markets deals and things like that, and being a general counsel of large companies.
wow.
Hmm.
One of those
I'm
high-powered jobs where you have to work at least 80 hours a week.
Yeah, yes, yes.
glad that I listened because I could have sworn you said your day job was murders. I'm like, you were hit.
Oh, mergers.
This says, and
He's a hitman.
she's telling everybody.
She's coming for you.
Wow. So did you
That's
do?
awesome. I love having. So you actually do you actually get to be do you actually put doctor in front of your name?
No, I don't.
But you can.
And I could, but I don't.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. It's just something I never um took that on, and because I just like relating to people. I like helping people. I don't try to engage too much in formalities. I just go in and, wanted to do my job. But I really don't practice law anymore.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
So
I'll
what?
tell you that the reason why I have the doctor in front of my name, I never required anybody to call me Dr. Rhonda or Dr. Lawson. So
Hmm.
when people found out that I had a doctorate, they were just automatically calling me Dr. Rhonda. And then that just kind of became my nickname, so to speak. I'm Dr. Rhonda everywhere I go. Dr. Rhonda, Dr. Rhonda. So I was like, okay, well, if y'all are going to call me Dr. Rhonda, I'm just going to go ahead and keep it. And then when I tell people you don't have to do that, they say, no, you earned it and I'm going to give you your flowers. So they insisted on it, and I was like, well, that's an honor that you thought enough of me to put the doctor in front of my name. So I just kept it.
Great, good, good. No, I think and in some professions or in some practices that you do, I think it's totally appropriate and people feel comfortable, as you said, putting that in front of your name. In the area where I was practicing it just was, it wasn't a part of the norm relationship between me and my clients.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, for me, because I'm around Rhonda so much, people start calling me doctor, and I'm like, I am not a doctor. I'm sick. Rhonda, that has happened many times.
Oh, that's
People
awesome.
assume I'm a doctor too, or they get us mixed up. They think I'm the doctor and that you're not the doctor. So I correct them quickly because I'm in a family. I have doctors in my family. I know how much work that is. And no, I don't. I
Yeah.
was not. That was not my calling. I didn't want to go back to school anymore. So
Well, I will tell you what, though, all of this education really helped me write these books, though, because as you probably know, as a lawyer, you do a lot of writing. A part of going to law school is writing, thinking things through, learning how to tell a story from A to B. Make sure you bring the listener along with you, especially if you're arguing to a jury or a judge. You're basically telling a story. So it was easy for me to transition from the practice of law as I was doing it to sitting down and writing a story and making sure, that it's proceeded and stuck together, and you could bring your reader along with you to understand what your characters were going through.
Yes, absolutely.
okay,
Yeah.
so how did you sit? When did you like decide? Uh, After I've completed these mergers and acquisitions, I'm going to write this historical fiction novel series. How
Well,
did
you
how
know
did
what?
that come about?
When my kids were little, I always enjoyed telling them stories at bedtime or reading them stories. Both of my children love reading. My daughter's a journalist. My son is in the entertainment field and a businessman. So they both enjoyed that. And so, from time to time, I would have people tell me, you need to write a book. You need to write a book about, some of these things you're doing around the world. Well, I tried to write what people told me I should be writing about, didn't, and I would sit down and write. And so I have a number of manuscripts that were started, never completed. One day I was sitting, in the beautiful, air of Nashville on my porch, and a story just came to me. I wrote it, did the outline, verified that it was interesting, by calling my son and saying, "Hey, I have this idea." Ran it by him, and he said, "I think it's a great story." So it just flowed. And I say it that God delivered that story in my head because it was so easy to just go on. The characters came into me, visited me, were telling me what they wanted and what their lives were like. So it was very much internalized and delivered externally. So I just wrote it, and that's how the book came to be. The characters wrote the book
Yeah.
and basically used me as a vehicle for getting their story out there. And as I said, even though sometimes the story felt disjointed as I was hearing it, um, and because of what I've learned as a profession and such, I was able to put all of their voices together and put it into a story for them. And, I'm bringing them to life. And there is a third book in process because they still need me to tie it up. And it may sound weird because I'm talking about these characters as separate from myself, and that's kind of the way I look at them. These are characters that have a life and want their stories told
Well,
because they're
that's
people
not
who
weird at all.
identify.
That's not weird at all.
No.
There are many authors who say that their characters told them which direction to go when they were writing, or their characters told them who they were. So sometimes when you get really deep into character development, your characters will kind of talk to you and they will tell you what they want to happen in the book. And that's usually the direction that you go in.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think that when a reader senses that, they can tell that this character is natural, that this character is authentic versus something really forced. And I know sometimes, because I've talked to other authors, and there's some authors that churn out book after book after book, and they say, well, I have a formula. And and that's something that at least right now I can't identify with because I want my characters to be very organic and
Mhm.
not stuck within a formula for producing a book.
Yeah, we do hear that from a lot of authors that the characters told them where the story was going.
Hmm.
And we're both authors as well. So uh, the same thing happened when I wrote my two novels. I have other books, just two novels, but I have 15 books altogether. Um, and Rhonda says the same thing about her when she wrote her books. How many books do you have now, Rhonda?
Um, I have 23, which includes my novels and it includes my anthologies.
That is
Okay.
wonderful.
Yeah.
Congratulations on that one.
Yeah.
Well,
I didn't remember what the number was, but I knew it was double digits at least. So now is this book, does it have any autobiographical elements to it in terms of, and I should say the series. I have the first book, it's Lost Seas the Beginning. But is it based on your family tree at all? Is your family tree woven into the story?
Elements of it, yes, they are very inspirational for some of the activities and characters. And that's one reason it's historical. It's very loosely based on an uncle that I had who I always found to be a mystery. He lived in the back of my grandmother's home out in a shed. And he was not really connected to the family. We were not really allowed to socialize with him. I was around 4 or 5 years old at the time, the time frame that I remember him. And what I realize now is that he had problems with alcohol. That's why, he exhibited some of the behavior that I observed. And I also think that's why my grandmother did not really let us interact with him. She would take his meals out to him. Um, and so I always wondered what his story was. Why was he like that? And why I didn't see him interacting with us as other family members were permitted. And so I made up a story around that. And some elements of the story are, things that I observed or things that I heard my family talk about from time to time. But for the most part, it's fictional, but woven in there. And the setting for the story too, is loosely based on the town where my grandparents lived as well.
Okay, so it's a southern setting.
Yes, ma'am.
Mhm. And then I'm going to ask you a little bit to talk about the plot of the book. But what you described is very southern in that a lot of times in the South, a family member will live adjacent to the main house, which is a small, not a big house. It's
No.
just the main the main dwelling, and then there'll be another smaller dwelling, or like for my family, which is a rural North Carolina. My grandmother uh, lived in a home. Both my grandparents, and my uncle had a trailer
Mhm.
that was within a few yards of their house. His family lived in the trailer. My uncle, my aunt, and my two cousins. They lived in the trailer. And my grandmother had diabetes, and my uncle would give her insulin shots every day.
Mm, yeah.
So
And
and at the time I didn't even understand what was going on. It was when
right,
I was maybe 8 or 9 in there. But
right. So as a young child, you kind of try to rationalize or, you know, figure out what you're observing. And even if you think about it in Black families just all over in the US, we had relatives that, you know, had either mental illnesses or alcoholism or other situations. Back at the time when I was little in the 50s and 60s, the families really didn't know how to deal with it. That person might have been marginalized or, cut out of, socializing with the larger family, or, just said, oh, they're crazy, kind of dismissive types of things. But we know today so much more about mental illnesses and alcoholism and other things that we just didn't know how to deal with back then. So in both of the books, you will see elements of dealing with mental illness, dealing with marriages that are dysfunctional or families that are dysfunctional, dealing with relatives that have multiple children while they're still married, kind of thing. So there are many things that I shouldn't say many, but there are several things that I observed and didn't understand when I was little. And so I wanted to reflect those through the eyes of a child and also to help people understand why some things were not effectively dealt with. It's just because back then we didn't have the knowledge.
yeah,
And
or access. We didn't have access to
oh,
mental health
that's right.
facilities at all.
That's
So
right.
our family members that had issues, they were just, or we took care of them, or they were around. We figured out how to deal with it. And then there were other situations where, uh, you know, when someone would have a child at a young age, that child was blended in to the family. I know my I knew it wasn't my uncle, but I didn't know what he was.
Mhm.
He was too young to be a cousin, I thought, but he was similar to my dad's age. And so, but it turned out my aunt had him when she was 14 or 15. And
Mhm.
so he was raised up together, but he was my cousin, actually my first cousin, but he was really the age of an uncle. You
Oh,
know
wow.
what I'm saying? And I didn't realize any of what had happened, the details, because they never talked about it.
Right,
They
right,
just
right,
were in the family. We're all family, and
right,
so that is something that is not as common today. The family aspect of the cohesiveness and figuring out how to make it work for the whole family, balancing it too. But everybody was involved, so it wasn't just one person having to deal with it, you know.
right. Exactly. So I am very proud of the characters and how they have told the story, through both of the books. And as you probably know, both of them have won book awards. And so that just shows that the story does resonate
And
with
that's good.
people.
That's
Yeah.
good because these are your first books that you published, right? So,
Yeah.
okay, Lost Seas is a series. Tell us the overarching theme or
Right.
plot of the story.
Yes, so the story really is about two brothers, Dub and Tim Briscoe, and they were both born in the early 1900s, and they come from a large family of 14 kids, and it's how they navigate all of the historical transitions that take over. Dub wants very much to be successful, and so he is tenacious and very focused and competitive. Where Tim, being the youngest child, is the product, as you may understand, is not the product of their father, but the product of their mother being violated by the owner of the plantation where they were working. And so the mother, because of what she went through and the trauma, Tim was often the target of her issues, her anger, her disgust, because he looked much like the man that violated her.
Okay.
So as a result of that, Tim had a harder time and incurred, some mental and emotional issues growing up, but he was a very smart person. The unfortunate thing is that he struggled not just with the mental illness, but he also struggled with his identity because he looked very much like his father and could pass. And so, um, because of the story really reflects how the two brothers, although they are related and brothers, how they find success or strive for success in different ways and incur different challenges. As a result, fast forward decades, that animosity and estrangement lasts up into the 60s until there is finally kind of a crisis that brings their lives together. And so to understand what that is, you've got to read the book.
Okay, so this one, the first one, ends. It starts off at the beginning in the early 1900s and goes through
To
to.
1929.
Okay, okay,
Yes. And the second one takes us fast forward through the 60s, around
okay,
64, 65.
okay,
So by this time, Dub has grandchildren and his kids are married. So you get to see how his life has evolved. You also get to see how Tim's life has evolved as well. The third book, which is a work in process right now, kind of fills in the middle part and focuses very much on the relationship of the mother to her sons.
okay,
Mhm.
okay. And the final book is called, because this one's Lost Seeds, the beginning. The second one is Legacy, and
Yeah.
the third one, you have a title yet? Is there a working title?
No, I do not, because that has not been revealed to me yet.
You probably won't come up. It probably won't be revealed to you until you're done with the story, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
But
Well,
you
Yeah.
know,
it's good
one thing
sometimes
I
to not have a
like about this,
preconception.
one thing I like about a series is that the more you write the stories, the more you get to know the characters. So they're probably talking to you a lot more now.
They absolutely are. They talk to me when I'm on the treadmill, when I'm driving in the car, and sometimes I just have to stop and write the notes or dictate into my recording so that I remember, what I've heard.
Now, what does that look like or sound like to you? Because I know that when we say we hear from our characters, we may experience different things, or we may mean different things, and then there may be some people who are watching, like, what do you mean they're talking to you? So, what does that look like to you?
Um, it's oh God, this sounds wild. It's the voices in my, it's like they're talking to me. They're giving me information on what is happening or what has happened to them at certain points in time. They're connecting sometimes, one element of the story that I understand to another element of the story and how it has impacted them. So I hear that, their voices in their head, and then they may introduce to me other characters that have played into how their lives are going. So it's just those voices and thoughts within my head. Does that make sense?
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think so. Because
Yeah.
like I said, we're both writers, so we've experienced it ourselves.
Yeah. And so I
When
either
you
have to
really
write
get
it
into
down.
the meat of writing a story, I think Rhonda had internet connection issues. Sometimes that happens to it's happened to me too, but not lately. But sometimes if the connection, she'll log back on in a minute.
Oh, okay.
Because she froze and
Oh,
then it was gone. So that let me know. So
well, I hope that and I encourage your viewers here to pick up the books, and if they like it, please, leave a review or shoot me a note and tell me what they thought about it. Um, it, like I said, it has won all kinds of accolades. If you go to the website, you will see that. There are 6 or 7 awards that Lost Seeds, the beginning, has won, and so far the second book has won 2 book awards. So I'm very proud of them, and I'm proud of the characters.
that's really great. Now, when you submitted your book for awards, how did you decide which awards you were going to pursue?
The I did a hybrid publishing, so the publisher that I worked with, a female-owned publishing company, Girl Friday, suggested those to me. She said these are the more reputable awards, the more respected awards
Okay.
in the independent publishing, um, you know, um, industry. So,
Okay.
not every award carries weight, but we focused on the ones that did and could lend credibility to the book. And
That's
you know,
always important. And
yeah,
competition, that means that your book is rising above or rose above the
yes,
competitors, the other people who submitted. And it's always it helps with readers, just like reviews.
yes.
So now your book is available wherever books are sold. Is that correct? Or
It's available very easily on Amazon.com, BarnesandNoble.com, bookshop.org.
okay,
And there's also it's on Kindle, and it's also Audible, so audiobooks. So we have some great readers reading both of the books. So however you want to consume, your stories, it's in that form for you.
okay. And lastly, when did they come out? So when did the first one come out?
The first one came out in September 2023. The second
Okay,
one came out in September 2024. I decided to um, take a little bit of a break, so the next one probably will wait till 2026 because the other two, are doing so well. Um,
okay,
yes, but
okay.
we're very pleased.
Okay. Well, Teresa, thank you for being a guest on Black Authors Matter TV. You all get your copies of Lost Seeds. There's the beginning, and then part 2 is a legacy, and it's available wherever books are sold. And I do plan to read it. It's going to be read soon, like maybe the third book down the list. So my to be read shelf is, you wouldn't believe it, because of this show, which is a good thing.
Yes,
It's
yes. Well,
because of
listen,
this
thank
show.
you for giving us this forum for sure.
Okay, and congratulations on all the accolades. And I meant to add, I'm gonna ask you one more quick question.
Yes, ma'am.
You were a child prodigy playing the piano at 4 years old.
Yes, ma'am. I
That's
was.
amazing. That's
Thank you.
amazing. I want people to know that. So that means you probably had a piano at home or somebody's house.
No, I did. And my mother's family particularly were all musicians. My grandfather played, and so we all just heard music from day one.
Oh, okay. All right. That's great. Okay. Well, have a great evening. And again,
Thank you,
congratulations.
Gwen, and thank
Okay.
you for having me.
You're welcome.
Bye-bye.
Bye bye.